Hi everyone. So today I'm going to walk you through triggering workflows from an external environment. That will be triggering a workflow from somewhere that isn't in a via breeze. And the method that I'm going to walk you through can be replicated in other environments, whether it's an application, a web service, a web page, you're scripted in HTML, Python, Curl, doesn't matter. And it will generally follow this concept. So first of all, we're going to download Google Postman. So if you go into Google and Google Postman, it should be the first link. It'll take you to the Google store. And Postman is a Google application that allows us to send RESTful requests. It allows us to do get, post, delete, and other methods to server addresses, to RESTful environments, to that and much more. And this application can be within the web or as a desktop application you download. And what you're seeing in front of you now is Google Postman. And in Postman, again, we have different methods we can use, whether it's a get, a post, a delete, and much more. What we're going to do is we're going to throw information to what we call the Breeze Eventing Connector. And that information will contain data. And if a workflow is laying in wait for that data, and if it's active, it will trigger the workflow and do the task that we defined. So what we're going to do is let's start off by going to what we call the admin console. So in the admin console, you have the event catalog tab, and this is where we create all kinds of different events. And these events are what we see at the start of every workflow. So you have events around calling, around messaging, around data, around that and much more. And you have preset events in this environment, but you also have the ability to write your own events, custom events in this environment. So I'm going to create my own event, and the format is as follows. So think of it as a data set. And you might have, for example, in relation to a university, it could be we're looking at, so the family will be university, or it could be the year or the students. For argument's sake, we'll just call it Leeds U, and display name will be the same. The event type could be a student being late. It could be student data. It could be anything. You define that event. You can call it what you want. And all these different fields are documented in the Breeze documentation that's available online. So what I'll do is I'll call this student data. Now I've done that, I need to define the version. So the version will be version 1 because every workflow all workflows start off as version 1. And the schema name, it doesn't really matter too much, but we can put it as student data third year. What we also want to do now is we want to enter this JSON schema editor over here, and we can define what our event contains. We can plug in different bits of information. It can be string, it can be a number, Boolean objects, it can be an array, and much more. So in this scenario, I'm going to create 2 bits of string data. So the first one will be student number, because that will be a data set that I'll be using in my environment. In your environment, it can be anything. It depends on what data you're passing in and passing out. And I'll also use student ID. Oops. Cool. When I save it, you see the schema update over here. I can go back into it and add more data, delete more data, customize more data. Let's put this as phone number. Yep. And the data will update over here. So this is me drawing this square shaped hole. I've created a custom Breeze event, and whenever information around this event is sent into the Breeze environment, if there is a workflow listening for that information or for that event, the workflow will trigger. So now let's go to our workflow. So I'm going to make this workflow very simple. And what you also notice as well, actually, is now we've created our custom event. You should see right there. That wasn't there before. But because we created our custom event, it now appears. The event family is leads you, student data, and version will be 1. And I could go into output mapping, and it shows me all the different data within this object, and I can manipulate that data in many different ways. Now we've done that, we're going to make this workflow just fairly simple. We're going to make it a simple make call. So when this workflow is, when the event is triggered, or when information is sent from an external source into Breeze, it'll trigger a phone call. That could be a database updating and sending information to Breeze. It could be a RESTful service. It could be someone pushing a button in an application. It can be a sensor going off. It can be many things. The idea around this concept is something outside of Breeze is sending information into Breeze, and that when that information is sent, it'll trigger a workflow. So for this, I'm just going to choose 04 and 08. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, doesn't matter. And I'm choosing 08 because my Iconlock client, I'm logged in as 08. Cool. And wait till I want it. So now I'm going to save this quickly. Let's just save. And I'm going to deploy it. And it's called Wix123. Deploy it as version 1. So now I've done that, going back into System Manager, into workflows, I can see my workflow appear over there. And I can trigger this manually if I wanted to. But I'm still in this Breeze, in this environment. I want to trigger it from someone external to this environment, so from Google Postman. And as I mentioned, Google Postman allows us to do different kinds of requests into different services and into different server addresses. And for this scenario, I'm going to do not a get, but a post. I'm going to post information because I am outside of Breeze into Breeze. Now, how do I know where Breeze is? Well, I need to post this information into what we call the Breeze Eventing Connector. That's the server location for, or the services location for, where all our Breeze events are funneled into. How do I get the URL for the Breeze Eventing Connector? Well, it's simple. Remember, Engagement Designer itself is just another application that's deployed in this Breeze environment. What I want to do is I want to grab, this URL up to services, and I don't want to go towards Engagement Designer. No, I don't want to do that. Let's grab a notepad. I want to paste it into here, and / eventing connector / events. Yeah. Once I've done that, this should be the URL where all my Breeze events go into, and this is the URL that I'll punch into Postman. There you go. He doesn't want to paste. There you go. Ignore that. So ignore the response, and I'll explain to you what this means later on, and I'll explain to you how to check to make sure that our request has gone through. And what's really good about this environment is we can monitor the state of the requests, if it passed through, and if the event was received, or if the request failed. And what's really good is that with our Breeze environment, we're able to send secure or unsecured requests. So now I have the address of our Breeze Eventing Connector. I need to pump some data into this. So this is me drawing the square-shaped ball. I go to body, and I want to enter. So you have keys and values. So the keys will be, now going back into what we created in the admin console in our events. Called it leads. There you are. Let's edit. So we want the family, we want the event type, and we want the version. So what we'll do is this. The Postman, the key will be family. Then it will be type, and it'll be version, and it'll be event body. I spelled body wrong. There you go. Now I've done that, I need to enter the values so that it knows which event we're talking about, because we can have hundreds and thousands of events in our Breeze environment. And the body for our event, well, is family will be leads you. The type will be student data. And the version will be 1. And make sure I put a capital S. Yeah, cool. The event body itself, or the event body will be the data that our data parameters for our event. So we have 2 data sets in our event, or in our object, which is student ID and student number. And we need to format this into the following format. I'm going to copy and paste that. You want to first just get rid of the properties and information over here. You want to start off with student ID. And we can even plug data into this. I can make my student ID, I'll just make it, let's just say Rashid123. And student phone number, I can make that, let's get rid of this. Make that any number I want. Cool. And that should be it. So now we can copy and paste this into our eventing body. Just make sure I've made no mistakes. Yep. So we'll go back into Postman. Paste it there. Let's just delete the space. Perfect. So now we've done this, you want to push send. And when we send, what should happen is it will trigger our workflow and call our number. And if it fails, we can monitor that it's failed, and we can look at what we've done wrong. So let's press send and test it now. As you can see, it's triggered. The status response is 200, which is okay, and it's triggered our workflow. Let's hang up. Just to make sure it wasn't a fluke, let's just do it again. So what it's done is it's thrown our square shaped ball into our Breeze environment. And we have a square shaped hole or workflow laying in wait for that event. And when that workflow hears that event, it triggers and does all the tasks that we defined. The task that we defined is simply making a phone call to our number. Now, what's really interesting is now we have the request for triggering workflows, or throwing information into Breeze and triggering workflows. We can convert this into code. And we can convert this into code for many different languages. We can convert it into code for, we're coding in Python. We can convert it into PHP. We can convert it into, maybe we're creating an application in Java or in Android Studio. We're going to convert it into OK HTTP. Now, with this Postman application has given us most of the code we need to create this function again in another environment, in another language. And this is about 70 or 80% of the code we need. You still, for example, this code I could use in Android Studio and in an application. And when a button is pressed, it will throw information to that address to trigger a workflow. But in Android Studio, I'll still need to be able to define the button, the functions around the button, and the functions around throwing this request. So it'll still require a bit of programming skills from your end. But there are many different ways and many different things we can do around throwing this information. And depending on what your environment you're coding in, you may need to install dependencies like OKHTTP. So it recognizes all the different functions, the codes, the token information that's used in this event. You can also do it in Go or C++ or C, or again, it just depends on what language you're coding in. So Google Postman is a great way to test different events, test code, and to formulate that code and convert it into other languages. Thank you very much.